are looking for jobs, who may have need some skills so that they can help them to find employment. They have the healing place that works with persons who have drug or alcohol addictions. And then there's their furniture bank, which provides furnishings, household items for persons who are homeless and moving into housing. And so the furniture bank is the part of CARITAS that we work closely with in our Kaizen. So some time ago, somebody said, what if, what if there was something that would allow them to address these issues? So this is a little short video that kind of explains in a nutshell.
What if there...
Uh-oh, are we having some technical difficulties? Let's see.
Was in place. No, a big place.
Now, can you hear the audio on this?
A warehouse. And what
are you able to hear the audio?
All over the community can come to this where household goods and furniture they no longer need and donate them. People could bring things like pots and pans, toasters, a dining table and chairs, mattresses and bedding, dressers and lamps, alarm clocks, and more. And what if people and families in need who have no furniture or dishes or linens could come to this warehouse with their caseworkers and get everything they need to turn their empty housing into comfy homes? This would mean families would have a dining table to sit at, a place where they could eat meals with their own dishes, drink a cup of coffee, do homework. Children who had been sleeping on the floor would now have beds and blankets to sleep under, and alarm clocks to wake them up so they can get to school on time. So day in and day out, this warehouse would fill with donations that would go right back to families in need. That's putting used goods to good use. What if a place like this really existed? It does.
So that kind of, in a nutshell, is what CARITAS is all about. And today, they are the largest provider of homeless services in the Richmond area. They divert 240,000 tons of stuff from our landfills, which is a big boost for, protecting our environment. And a lot of us have things, if you've been in a home for any period of time, you know that you've collected quite a few things over the years. And so having some place where your items that are no longer needed, where they can go and be used, it's a good thing. Just to give you some idea of how many households that have been assisted, and I don't have an update for this number for 2014-15, but in 2013 they assisted 944 households, and these are numbers for some of the items that they collect. Now, with an organization that does what CARITAS does, people donate any and everything. They may be in very good shape, and they hope that they are things that people can use, and sometimes that's not the case. But why we were helping CARITAS is because for an organization that receives donations from, it can be from individuals, it can be from a hotel, it can be from anyone who has something that they want to donate that can be used in the home. And so if you look at this picture, and it's that photography, I apologize, I'm not a very good photographer, but it kind of gives you an idea of what the areas look like, the space in the warehouse where CARITAS is housed. You can see where there's just stuff, in the aisles, on the floor, on the shelves. The photo on the left and this one on the right has, you know, you have linens and things, soft goods, and then you have dishes and some other stuff. And so when we went in to work with CARITAS, it was to help them to organize their receiving area. They have donations that come in, you know, as I said, it can be from anywhere. People can drop off donations there at the warehouse on Commerce Road. They also have the donation boxes that sit around in different areas of the city where people can, you know, drop off their donation at one of those pods. And then they have workers that come in, that pick them up periodically and bring them in. But donations can come from anywhere, and it's a lot to manage. And so that's why they needed us. That's why they needed ASQ and the skills that we have to offer. We put the request out. We notified our members of the section that we were doing this, that we had this project for the community that we were starting. Our core team, we invited, you know, all of the members of the section, you know, received the invitation, and we had a team of 8 who, you know, who worked on the project from the beginning. And we started in the spring of 2014, around April or May. We put the notice out, and we got a team of about 8 who were the core members of the group. And I served as the project manager, and I had experience in facilitating several process improvement events in my employment with Reynolds or Alcoa. And Don was our process improvement guru who kind of helped to guide us along the process. Our other members on our team did not really have a lot, if any, experience at all in, you know, participating in a Kaizen. So it was a good experience for them. We had members who are part of the section who were not able to participate regularly, but here and there they could offer their time. We also had our experts from CARITAS, who were people in the management as well at part levels of the organization, as well as, you know, volunteers who would come in once a week or so and help out. The key person involved from the CARITAS side was Lori Schmigi, who was the warehouse manager, and she was the process owner. So she worked very closely with us throughout the process, and then other members of the CARITAS team were in and out as needed. We took the time to get a good understanding of the of how CARITAS operated and get an understanding of their needs. And so we did that through observing the client's shopping day. Now, a shopping day means, you know, clients that come in, and the people that CARITAS help typically come to them through some social service organization. You know, the Virginia Department of Social Services, some organization gives them a pass to come to CARITAS to the warehouse and get some of the household things that they need when they're ready to move into permanent housing. And so we observed a client shopping day, and we have also observed how they receive donations, whether it's an individual dropping off something or the CARITAS pod that is picked up from wherever it may be throughout the city and brought to the warehouse and unloaded. And so that's how we were able to learn, you know, how the donation process works, how the donations are received and distributed. And so Don is going to discuss now how the project worked for the improvements.
Okay. Well, of course, we have to have a charter. And this is probably about the 4th or 5th draft. It's a little bit of an eye chart if you're trying to read it, but the important thing is the problem statement. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out exactly how to describe the problem. And it ended up being just simply that the receiving and processing areas are not arranged so that volunteers can independently sort to have goods available for CARITAS clients. And of course, we've got the scope, you know, the goals and objectives and so on. Go on the next one. Right, right. Click on the next one. So the goals were, you know, we wanted to improve the sorting capabilities, and I'll talk about these metrics in just a few seconds. We wanted to increase the value-added ratio from 0.25 to 0.35. We saw that they were doing a lot of non-value-added work, just moving stuff from one place to another without accomplishing anything. So we wanted to help them to eliminate that. Spaces where stuff was stored was not very efficiently organized. You know, you might have to travel a long distance, 85 feet from one end of the storage rack to the other, to put something, and, you know, go back and forth several times. So we wanted to reduce the distance that materials traveled through the workspace and reduce the handling time, the number of cumulative touches. So we struggled to come up with what are the right metrics, what are the key process indicators when we had such a very general problem statement and goals and objectives. And we finally decided that if we trace one of each item through the storage area, from where it's received at the loading dock, sorted, stored on shelves, packaged, moved into the shopping area, and tracked exactly what happened to each type of item, that we could actually come up with some numbers. And it wouldn't be something that we'd have to have a large sampling plan, you know, to go in and collect data for days. We could just trace items through the workspace. So the 4 metrics we came up with were the value-added ratio, which is simply the number of value-added steps divided by the total number of steps, cumulative for all the items that are processed through the storage area. Touches, the number of times an item is touched, once again accumulated for all the different types of items. Travel distance, and flow conflicts. We noted that there was a lot of disorganization in the area where people were crossing each other's paths, bumping into each other. So we wanted to eliminate, you know, reduce the number of times that would happen. And the way we came up with the metrics is, like I said, we traced each item through the processing area, recorded what happened to it, and just wrote down the numbers. Made it very simple to do, although it was tedious because there were 27 different item types and each one of them had to have a spreadsheet like this. So the 3 of us who worked on this part of the project put in more time than we had expected to begin with. But we did end up with what we thought was a reasonable set of baseline metrics that would, you know, give us a picture quantitatively of how the process was working, and we could use that to see how much we were able to improve it. You also have to map a process, of course. We decided the best way to do it here would be simply a process flow map, or spaghetti map as it's called, and you can see why. So you see the flow lines where things come in on the top right corner, things come in from the loading dock and go into a new arrivals area, and then from there they go all over the place. So if you compare the before and after process maps, we did a pretty good job of straightening things out so that people weren't crossing each other's paths. One thing you'll note on the aftermath is you see a sorting table, the rectangle up at the top center on the right-hand side. Those were originally storage shelves sitting around that table where stuff was just more or less haphazardly stacked. Those shelves are gone. What they do now is they bring the donated items in on carts, roller carts, straight to the sorting table, cutting out that new arrivals rack entirely. And then they go on to other carts. The bed sheets go on to, some wheeled racks where they're rolled from the sorting table down the aisle to where the bed sheets are handled. Dishware, dinnerware is loaded onto carts from the storage areas along the side walls. The interesting thing about this was once we got the CARITAS people involved and able to understand what we meant by value added and how to identify waste or muda, they got really excited. It was a lot of fun to work with them. When we started to do the brainstorming for improvement, they were coming up with ideas that we'd never thought of.
They were the experts.
Yeah, they were the experts, and they were saying, we've been doing it this way for a long time. It'd be a lot better if we did it this other way. For instance, the dish pack area where they package dishware, this one here. Yeah, they package dishware into a box to give the family a serving of 4. They were putting these items onto the storage shelves, then carrying them from the storage shelves to a little table where they boxed them up. And they decided, well, why don't we put that box on a rolling cart and just go right down the line along that rack and put the items into it. Yeah. That's the kind of ideas they were coming up with when we said, well, gee, that's great. You're doing better at improving the process than we are. Yeah, you can talk about this.
So at this point in the project, we had identified changes that we were going to make, but we had to clear out, some areas. And so here, behind this this is one of the volunteers from Capital One, and CARITAS operates heavily on volunteers. They may have about maybe 10 employees who are on their payroll, but they depend heavily on volunteers from the community. And they'll have groups who come in that, can have 15, 20 people or so, even more or less. And then they have some volunteers, a few individuals that come in like clockwork. Every week on a certain day, they have a couple of ladies who come in and help with the sorting. And so, what we were doing here is, this is one of the areas where they work. There's a table and then all of this glassware behind her. So she's come in and helping with trying to do a little bit of cleaning and organizing, where we were implementing the changes that we identified. So here along this aisle, you see dishes on the lower shelves, and then there is some bath towels that are on the upper shelf. They don't get a lot of those. And then there's labeling that we put in, and this is temporary labeling that we did when we were going through and making changes in the warehouse for the area that we were focusing on. This is day 2 of implementing the changes. And so this is that area that you saw earlier in the presentation where stuff was just all over the floor in a pile and was just a huge mess. And so this is where we've gone in and cleaned up a bit of the areas, particularly with the bed, because the linens, that's, they had quite a bit of those types of donations. And the volunteers that we have here, I think on this day, one day we had a group of about 20 or so volunteers from Capital One, and then the second day I think the majority of the volunteers were members of our ASQ section.
But that was it was 2 full days work
Mhm.
to reorganize everything, even with the crew we had there. But CARITAS was perfectly happy to devote 2 full days of their time, and we got it done.
Yes. And as you can see, it looks a lot better.
Yeah. One thing they addressed here was inventory control. That wasn't one of our improvement goals, but they had a real problem because there's no control really over what gets donated. So they would accumulate things that they weren't going to give to clients and they didn't know what to do with. For instance, the bed sheets, bed linens area, about half of that full set of racks was taken up with king-size bedding. And they very rarely give king-size bedding to their clients because these people are moving into small apartments. They don't have room for king-size beds. So all these bed linens just accumulated. And what we told them to do was designate this one particular area for king size. Don't let it overflow. If you get more than fits in that area, redonate it to someone else. You don't need to store this stuff if you don't need it.
Right.
And when we went back to visit them just a couple of weeks ago, they actually kept a real tight control over the inventory. I was
we were pleasantly surprised.
pleasantly surprised, yeah, because that had been such a big problem before.
Yeah. And they didn't go back to their old ways, but just to let you also know that, you know, because they're receiving donations, you know, they may say we need, you know, sheets, pillowcases, towels, dishes, dishes meaning plates, cups, you know, silverware. Those are some basic things that you need for a household when you're wherever you're living. But that doesn't mean that people won't give you their items, things that they no longer need. And so there are things that CARITAS will receive that they just can't do anything with, and they'll receive a lot of it. Say, for example, they had a shelf that was filled with, you know, the vases from things that people have received. I got flowers. Oh, I don't need this anymore. I don't want to throw it away, so I'll give it to CARITAS. Well, if you're homeless, you really don't care whether you have fresh cut flowers or not. That's not a priority for you. Just like Don was saying about the king size sheets, or you may have an overabundance, or they may donate blankets or sheets or comforters or whatever that are not in really good shape. And so what CARITAS will do for something like that is they may donate it to the SPCA, some animal shelter, because they can use it to line the cages or the houses for the dogs or, you know, animals that they have at the SPCA. They also have they also do yard sales. So for some things, furniture or household items that they receive that are really not big movers, they may have a yard sale once a month, and those things will be available. And, you know, some people love to do yard sales, and so they can find some really good things. They may have antique pieces that, you know, not suitable for donating, but the CARITAS can use it to sell it, and that can be revenue for the organization. So they do a very good job of repurposing items, you know, in addition to donating it to someone who has been homeless, but they can also find a way to use those extra items that are not really, you know, don't move very well. They can use it to sell, to make money for CARITAS and put it back into the organization and what they do.
Okay, so did we achieve our improvement goals with CARITAS? And we went back and redid the metrics after the improvement, and it looks like the only one that we really improved, in fact we exceeded the improvement goal, was flow conflicts. But if you look at the change in the other items, The way we calculated the metrics does not reflect the biggest change that they made, which is moving things on carts instead of hand carry. Where you can move a large number of items from one place to another at one time instead of making multiple trips. So once you consider that improvement, yeah, our belief is that we actually far exceeded the goal, the improvement goal.
Mm-hmm. So the improvements that we made included, you know, removing those bookshelves, the one in the slide that you saw where you had all the glasses behind the lady who was at a cart moving some things. We removed those bookshelves and we placed Gaylord boxes there so that when items come in, when the donations are received, they can go in those Gaylord boxes as opposed to be in a pile on the floor or, you know, trying to put them on the shelves. We organized the shelves so that they were ordered in the way that they would pack the boxes. So say, for example, for the shelves that had the dishes, you know, at the end of the aisle, you'd start at the end of the aisle and pick up a box, add your plates, you know, your cups, you know, your saucers and your cups, so that and the way that we designed this part of the process for doing the dish packs, the volunteers would have a cart and they get a box and they would go along the shelves along the aisle and pick up the things that they need and put them in the box as they go. Now, I mentioned that there were a couple of volunteers that come regularly, and so the volunteers, they have their way of doing things, and even though it's more efficient to get the box, you know, you have your cart, get the box, and put things as you go along, they prefer to get the things off the shelf, take it to the table, and then fill the box, which is, you know, in this process, in trying to improve the process, you're trying to cut down on waste, which includes a lot of extra steps. But they are volunteers, and this is an opportunity for them to do a little bit of socializing, and so it's easier for them to do that, they feel, at the table as opposed to doing it along the aisleways. So, you know, you pick and choose your battles. They want to do it their way, and so, you know, overall, it's still a big help having the shelves organized with the dishes so that they can easily go along and pick up what they need. Same thing on the aisle that had the linens. They're organized by, you know, linens by size, comforters by size, so that it's easy to see what you have in inventory. And they're also able to, you know, manage the inventory better because they're confined to a certain section, and when the section becomes full, if you're filled with queen size sheets, then you may give the clients an extra, you know, set of sheets. And the number of items that the clients receive depend upon the number of persons in the household as well. So they'll increase what they get depending upon what the inventory is. So we redistributed the spaces, defined procedures for processing the donations, how they come in, where they go, and where they're staged, and how they're, you know, how they're sorted and put away. And there's signage and all put up, and the shelves are marked. So it's easy for the volunteers, for an organization that operates on volunteer labor, it's easy for someone to come in and help without having a whole lot of instruction. It's pretty, you know, it's pretty organized and easy to see what you need to do. So when we finished the project, at the end of the project, we had to prepare written procedures, remove old signage and replace it with new, you know, and putting in permanent signs and all for the volunteers, train the users, and then that the process owner, Lori, that she would be sure that she monitored the process and be sure that things continue to work the way that it should, and that we would come back and evaluate how things were going. So this is the slide that we showed you earlier where, you know, this is the before with all of the things piled on the floor and things kind of haphazardly put away over in this right slide for the dishes. And the majority of the changes are still in place. We have a couple of volunteers, as I say, who continue to want to do it their own way. But the process owner, Lori, who worked with us, she was really pleased with how the process, the Kaizen worked, and she's actually taken some of the things that she used to improve things in the other areas of the furniture bank, because the furniture bank has the warehouse side where donations are received and the household items that are routinely distributed to the client. You have that section, but then there's another section of the warehouse where they have those kind of specialty items that are not necessarily included as donations to the client, but they're things, you know, like antique pieces or, you know, dishes that people just don't use anymore. Those kinds of things they have available for their yard sale so that they can have extra income. And they improved the lighting in the warehouse, which was, you know, for us a huge problem. And so this is, you know, the new and improved area. Don and I went in earlier this month, and thanks to this invitation for the to present to Blue Ridge, it forced us to go in and look at the project to see how things were going. And so this is the aisle where the carts that they use, these metal carts on the right, items go on there and then eventually onto the shelves where they belong after they've been sized. The tables that you see on the left are marked so that they can measure the sheets, the bedding, the linens that come in to determine whether it's twin, queen, full size, or whatever. And they're folded and bundled and placed on the shelves in the appropriate area.
Yeah, and when it's time to move those into the shopping area, you know, where they keep a certain number of bundles available for the clients to come in on shopping days, they take them from the other side.
Oh,
yeah, since these are open racks, so there's no conflict with people moving in the sorting area and in the distribution area.
And this area over here is specifically for the clients. When they come in, they don't come back into this area here. There's another area that you don't see that's on the other side of the curtain where the clients have access to the furniture that they may get. And I believe that when they receive their bundles for the linens, you know, they'll have a shopper who is with them. When the client comes in, they're assigned a shopper who helps them to come in and pick up the things that they need. And so they will just take them the linens that they need as well as the dish packs, as opposed to having them come into this area where things are actually stored. And so here you can see on the left the aisle that has the linens and the tables that they use for folding and measuring. And then the aisle on the right side in that photo, it's a picture of the dishes, glassware, and they have a lot of that. And so as I said, you know, when they have an overabundance of an item, they may give more to the client just so that they can get the inventory down and manage it better. And this is the area, same aisle that you just saw in the previous slide on the right, and this is farther down the aisle where they have more dishes, saucers. They get donations. They may get donations from a hotel that, you know, they may be going out of business, or they may be changing over to new dishes or whatever, and they receive a lot of donations that way, or maybe from, you know, from linens from some of the hotels in the area. So, you know, we, in doing this project, we were glad that CARITAS was willing for us to come in and help them out, and they appreciated the help. The process owner, Lori Schmiege, who is the warehouse manager at CARITAS. She was very open and willing, the CARITAS leadership, because it's important when you do something like this to have buy-in from everybody in the organization, because otherwise it's like fighting an uphill battle. And they realized that their process needed to be more efficient than what it was. So they were very open to what we had to offer. Our ASQ volunteers, whether they were on the core team or those who came in occasionally and helped out, it was a big part of making the process a success, as well as the CARITAS volunteers. Those ladies that come in a couple times every week, a couple of ladies who come in every week, as well as the periodic volunteers that come in. They all contributed to the project. Those volunteers that are there every week, they, one of them, for example, was not able to, there are two of them that volunteer regularly, and they were not able to meet with us physically when we had our meetings to plan the project. But one of them actually called in, so we did like a telephone conference with her to get input on things that we could do to make the project better, to help her understand, our goal, and then get feedback from her. So, so it's just really important with the Kaizen, a project like this, to get buy-in from everybody and to get their understanding, to be sure that everybody's on the same page. Okay, so we have, that's all that we have, and we can answer any questions or take comments now if you'd like. Do I need to go back to here? Stop sharing. Let's see.
The thing that I think is really impressive is that you were able to come back a year later and see that your improvements were still in place. They truly were improvements in order for that to happen, I think.
Yeah, as we said, we were pleasantly surprised.
Yes, we were very happy to go back and see that the improvements, that they were working. Because, sometimes, you'll change something and after a while it'll go back to the way it was. And we were really happy that it was still working for them.
If there are any more questions, I think we'll wrap it up. Please look for the survey that you should get in your email, and check out the calendar for April's events. I'd really like to thank you, Adrienne and Don. It's very impressive what you did to create a community service project where you use the tools of the trade. I think that it's fantastic what you did. So thank you so much for taking the time to share it with us.
Well, thank you, and I hope it's helpful. We hope that it's helpful for Blue Ridge, and I'm sure there are some organizations in your community that could benefit from this type of help. So I hope you're able to set up something.
We know that we'd like to do some kind of community service activity, and this kind of gives us an idea of how to get started, I think.
Well, good, good. Well, if there's anything that we can do to help, just let us know. And I can send you a copy of do you all post presentations on your website?
Yes. Yeah,
okay,
I'll get it to the right place.
Okay, I'll email it to you then.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay.